Luke Carter had always been drawn to old things. When most people saw broken machines or forgotten stations drifting in space, he saw potential. He liked the smell of oil and metal, the way circuits hummed when they were alive. It was a strange fascination, but it had kept him alive in the trading and salvage markets for years. Some called him reckless. Some said he had luck on his side. Luke just said he had patience. Patience to see what others ignored. The auction that morning was quiet. The station had been almost abandoned for years, with only a few merchants and scavengers drifting among the floating cargo. The main hall was dusty, lights flickering in places, and the walls were scratched and stained from years of neglect. Luke wandered among the rows of sealed hangars and crates. Each had a tag, a number, and a price. Most were obvious. Broken drones, empty containers, old starship engines that no longer worked. He passed over them without a second glance. Then he saw it. A small hangar tucked in the corner, marked with a faded sign. The price listed next to it made him pause. 11 credits. 11 credits for a hangar on a dying station? It had to be a mistake. Other bidders ignored it completely. Some were more interested in high-end cargo or ships with fancy engines. But Luke felt a strange pull toward it. His instincts told him that even in neglect, something hidden could be valuable. He raised his hand. "I'll take it," he said, keeping his voice calm. Others laughed quietly behind him. They whispered things like, "Probably scrap," or "He's wasting his credits." The auctioneer barely glanced at him, nodded, and rang the bell. The deal was done. 11 credits, and the hangar was his. When Luke approached the hangar, he noticed how quiet the area around it was. Even the station drones seemed hesitant to come near. The large doors had rust around the edges, paint peeling in long strips. Luke placed his hand on the metal and pushed. The doors creaked loudly, almost painfully, as if complaining after decades of silence. He pulled them all the way open. Inside, the hangar was dark. Dust hung in the air, disturbed by his movement. As his eyes adjusted, he saw shapes covered in tarps and metal sheets. Most looked like old cargo, broken machinery, forgotten tools. But at the very center, something caught his attention. It was different. The shape was massive, longer and taller than anything he had expected. The outline of a ship, sleek but ancient, covered in layers of dust and strange markings. It looked dead, but there was a sense of quiet strength about it. Luke stepped closer, careful not to disturb the smaller piles of scrap. He ran his fingers along a smooth panel. It was cold, but not corroded. The metal beneath was strong, unyielding. The markings on the hull were alien, unlike anything he had seen before, yet strangely familiar. He felt a chill run down his spine. It was a ship, yes, but one that had been forgotten for a reason. He started his inspection slowly. Small lights flickered on as he moved around, responding to his presence. Strange energy readings spiked on his scanner. Luke frowned. Adderman. The sensors showed faint signals, but they did not match anything in his database. It was almost as if the ship itself was alive. He shook his head. "Just old power sources," he muttered, trying to convince himself. But deep down, he felt that there was more. As he worked, other scavengers began to notice. A small group gathered outside, whispering and watching him from a distance. Some tried to sneak in, hoping to see what he had found. As they approached the entrance, a loud, pulsing hum filled the hangar. It was low, deep, vibrating through the floor and walls. The intruders froze. Lights flickered, and some of their tools short-circuited. One of them swore and ran back to the main corridor. The others hesitated, unsure if they should continue. Luke did not move. He watched the reactions of the others carefully. Something protected this ship, he realized. He could not see it, but it was there. It was not alive in the normal sense, but it had awareness. It had rules. It did not attack him. Not yet. But it made sure no one else came near. He decided to explore further. He climbed a small maintenance ladder to reach the cockpit area. The canopy was opaque with dust, but his hand brushed it, and the material felt oddly warm. As he cleaned a small section, the glass suddenly cleared for a moment, as if inviting him to look inside. He saw the controls. Strange, alien shapes, but somehow arranged in a pattern he could understand. He had worked on many ships in his life, and despite the alien technology, the interface seemed to respond to him. Hours passed. Luke worked alone, examining panels, testing circuits, and documenting everything. The other scavengers gave up and left, muttering complaints and warnings. The station felt emptier than usual. When he finally stepped back and looked at the entire ship, he realized how massive it was. The wings, folded neatly, spanned nearly the width of the hangar. The engines were unlike anything he had repaired before. Shaped like long, twisting coils, humming faintly with stored energy. Then the first warning came. A panel lit up, deep red, and a voice echoed in the hangar. It was calm, almost mechanical, but it made Luke jump. Unauthorized approach detected. State your purpose. Luke froze. He had expected strange readings, perhaps dormant systems, but not this. His heart pounded. He swallowed and said slowly, "My name is Luke Carter. I just bought this hangar. I am not here to steal or damage your ship." There was a pause. The lights dimmed slightly, then brightened. A new voice, smoother this time, spoke. Purpose acknowledged. Human presence accepted. Others excluded. Luke exhaled. He felt relief mixed with unease. The ship was alive in some way. It could think, or at least judge, and it had chosen to accept him. As he moved to leave for the night, he noticed the hangar doors closing automatically behind him. The hum grew quieter. He could feel the ship's presence, even from outside. He realized that he had just begun. This was no ordinary salvage. This ship had been waiting for someone like him. Someone human, patient, and respectful. The rest of the station would laugh if they knew what he had found. A worthless hangar for 11 credits, hiding a warship older than most of the colonies. Luke smiled. He did not tell anyone. He would keep it a secret until he knew what the ship wanted him to do. That night, as he slept in a small bunk on the station, Luke dreamed of engines that hummed like living creatures, of weapons that could destroy worlds, and of a quiet voice telling him to be ready. He woke with a start, but he knew one thing clearly. His life had changed forever. He was no longer just a salvager. He was the owner of a ship that carried the weight of forgotten wars, waiting to see if humanity still deserved to command it. The following days were filled with careful exploration. Luke cleaned the outer hull, patched minor damage, and traced the power lines that still pulsed faintly. He discovered compartments filled with ancient supplies, strange tools, and documentation written in a language partly familiar. He began learning, trying to decode the systems and testing small components. Each time he touched a panel, it responded. The lights flickered in patterns. The engines hummed more steadily. Some nights, he felt watched. Not by humans, but by something else. A presence. Quiet but overwhelming. Guarding the ship. It never harmed him, but it made him aware that the ship's protection was not simple technology. It was intelligence. It was history. It was memory. By the end of the week, Luke realized he had found more than he imagined. The hangar, the ship, the guardian presence, they were all part of something much bigger. The aliens who mocked him were right in one way. This was terrifying. Not in a way that caused fear, but in a way that reminded him that humans had once built things that even now could inspire awe and dread across the stars. And Luke knew he had barely scratched the surface. Luke Carter spent the next morning back at the hangar, feeling both excitement and unease. He had learned that the ship was alive in some sense, but he did not understand its full capabilities. He had patched a few minor damages on the hull and tested the power systems. Lights flickered to life, humming with quiet energy, but he knew there was much more hidden. As he worked, the station felt strangely quiet. He noticed that the drones normally patrolling the corridors avoided the hangar completely. Even their mechanical hum seemed distant. It was as if the ship's presence reached beyond its walls, creating a zone no ordinary machine wanted to enter. Luke shivered. He had expected resistance from the alien scavengers. But this was different. This was awareness. He had been alone for most of the morning when a loud clang echoed from the corridor. He turned to see 3 alien scavengers approaching. They were short, wiry, with greenish skin and long fingers. Their eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. They had weapons slung across their shoulders and were grinning with malice. "You found something, human," one of them hissed. "We can take it from you. It is ours now." Luke took a step back. He had prepared for many things, but not for direct confrontation. Yet he did not panic. He had seen too many scavengers over the years, and he knew fear often made humans weaker than they were. He raised his hands slowly. "I do not want trouble," he said. "This hangar belongs to me. Leave, and no one gets hurt." "Arr!" The aliens laughed, a high-pitched sound that made the station walls echo. They stepped closer. Suddenly, the hum of the hangar grew louder. The lights inside the ship flickered on, bright and sharp. Luke froze. The aliens froze too. He felt the vibration in his chest, a deep, low rumble that seemed to come from the floor. Without warning, invisible forces pushed the aliens back. They stumbled, clawing at the air as if it had become solid. One of them hit the wall and hissed in pain, but there were no marks on him. The ship's defense systems had activated. Luke watched, wide-eyed, as the aliens scrambled backward, terrified and confused. "What is this?" one of the aliens screamed. It moves." Luke realized that the ship was protecting itself. It did not attack directly, but it created barriers, illusions, and controlled the environment to keep intruders away. He could feel its presence stronger than ever. It was aware, intelligent, and watching him closely. He had earned its acceptance, but it would not allow anyone else near. After a tense moment, the aliens retreated, muttering curses in their language. Luke waited until he was sure they had left. Then, he stepped closer to the ship. The hum softened, almost as if it were breathing. Lights flickered along the hull, and a panel near the cockpit opened slightly, revealing a soft glow inside. It was an invitation, but also a reminder. He was alone in this, and the ship would decide everything. Luke took a deep breath and climbed the ladder to the cockpit. He ran his fingers along the controls again, testing each interface. Surprisingly, many systems responded. Panels lit up, displays showed strange symbols, and the hum of the engines adjusted to his presence. He realized the ship was testing him. It was assessing his intentions, his patience, his respect for what it was. He spent hours exploring the ship from inside. He found storage compartments, each filled with strange devices, energy cells, and tools, unlike anything in his experience. Some of the technology seemed alien, while other parts had human design. as if the ship had been built for humans, but modified by others over time. Luke noted everything carefully. He wanted to understand, not rush. While he worked, the station outside grew restless. News had spread that a human had bought a hangar for almost nothing, and rumors of something strange inside had reached alien ears. Other scavengers and merchants approached, curious and greedy. But every time they neared, the same effect occurred. They were stopped by invisible forces, unable to enter the hangar. Some ran screaming, others returned to their ships muttering warnings. It became clear to Luke. The ship had been built not just for battle, but to protect itself from intruders. That evening, a station engineer named Claire Benson approached. She was human, older than Luke, with short brown hair and steady hands. She had heard about the hangar and wanted to help. Luke hesitated but realized that he could use a trusted ally. "I've been watching from the corridor," Claire said softly. "Whatever is in there, it's not ordinary. You should be careful. Number one. Number one. Number one. Number one." Luke nodded. "I know. It responds to me, but it will attack anyone else. I think it is alive." Claire raised an eyebrow. "Alive? Machines don't live." "This one does," Luke said. "I don't know how, but it can think. It knows who I am. And it's judging me." Claire stepped closer. "Judging? Like a human?" "Yes," Luke said. "Like it can tell my intent. It's terrifying." Together, they returned to the hangar. Luke showed Claire the control panels, the glowing energy cells, and the strange markings on the hull. Claire examined everything with careful attention. She nodded slowly. "This ship, it was built to protect humans, or maybe just one human," she said. "I've seen designs like this in old archives. They were meant to be guardians, almost like soldiers and protectors at the same time. They could destroy planets, but only if commanded. Otherwise, they waited." Luke listened, fascinated. He realized that the ship's terrifying defenses were not random. They were precise, intelligent, and patient. It would wait for the right person, test them, and allow them to command it. Anyone else would face consequences. The aliens had learned this the hard way. Over the next few days, Luke and Claire worked together to explore the ship further. They patched systems, cleaned critical panels, and tested sensors. Each time they moved, the ship reacted subtly. Lights dimmed, hums shifted, panels opened or closed, guiding them. It was as if it communicated without words, giving them hints, but never explaining everything. One night, as Luke rested near the hangar door, he saw shadows move in the corridors outside. Alien scavengers were trying again. More cautiously this time. Luke tensed, ready to defend himself, but the ship did not need him. The moment the intruders stepped near, a strange phenomenon occurred. The air seemed to thicken, walls shifted slightly, and strange images appeared in the shadows. Giant, unrecognizable forms that moved silently, watching. The aliens screamed and ran. But not because of weapons. They fled because the ship made them afraid. Luke marveled at this. The ship's power was terrifying, but it was controlled. It did not kill. It did not strike unless threatened. It protected, judged, and waited. He began to understand why it had been hidden for so long. Alien powers would not dare take it lightly. Humans had built something capable of defending itself with almost no human intervention. Something that could inspire fear, without firing a single shot. Claire looked at him and said, "If this ship gets into the wrong hands, entire systems could fall. It has the intelligence to fight wars by itself." Luke nodded. "That's why it chose me, I think. It can sense humans who can handle it. Maybe it's waiting for someone to restore it fully. Someone who can understand it. They spent the next week cautiously exploring all compartments. They discovered storage areas filled with historical records, weapon blueprints, and maps of systems that no longer existed. Luke realized that this was more than a ship. It was a relic of humanity's power, hidden to survive centuries. One afternoon, the hangar doors closed automatically behind him, and the hum grew louder than ever. Luke felt the vibration through his bones. He realized the ship was ready for more than inspection. It wanted action. He looked at Claire, who understood immediately. "It's asking for something," she said softly. "It's ready to wake fully. But it wants to know if you are ready." Luke swallowed hard. He knew the weeks of exploration had only been a preparation. The ship's defenses were already terrifying, but they were nothing compared to what it could do if fully active. He placed a hand on the hull. The metal was warm, pulsing with energy, alive. "I am ready," he said, his voice calm. "I want to understand you. I want to restore you." The lights flickered, the hum shifted, and a voice, deeper and calmer than before, echoed in the hangar. "Human intent accepted. Further tests unnecessary. Preparation complete." Luke looked at Claire. She smiled, a mix of awe and fear. "You did it," she said. "You have the ship's trust." He nodded. But he did not feel pride. He felt responsibility. This was bigger than anything he had faced. The aliens outside would not stop. The galaxy might not be ready for what was waking inside this hangar. But Luke knew one thing. He was no longer just a scavenger. He was part of something ancient, powerful, and terrifying. And he was ready to face whatever came next. Luke Carter spent the next morning staring at the warship, feeling a mix of excitement and fear. The ship had accepted him, but he knew it was not fully awake. He could feel the energy flowing beneath the panels, hums that sounded almost like a heartbeat. But many systems were still dormant. The ancient ship had waited centuries, and now it needed care, guidance, and someone it could trust. He climbed into the cockpit again, touching the controls gently. The panels glowed faintly at his presence, and he noticed new readouts he had not seen before. The ship responded to his touch, but it also seemed to guide him, like it knew what needed fixing first. Luke realized that restoring it would take more than skill. It would take patience and understanding. Claire was there to help. She moved carefully around the cockpit, documenting every system and scanning components. "This is incredible," she said. "I've never seen technology like this. It's almost alive." "I know," Luke said. "It's judging everything we do. One wrong move and it could lock us out or worse." "Worse?" Claire asked, her eyes widened. "I don't know exactly," Luke admitted. "But it's not just a ship. It's a war machine built to protect humans, and it can defend itself against anyone it chooses." They began with the engines. The coils were massive and wound in patterns that made Luke feel dizzy, just looking at them. He had repaired engines before, but these were different. Ancient energy ran through them, a kind of power he had never measured. He connected diagnostic tools, and the ship pulsed in response, like it was testing him. "Be careful," Claire warned. "Whatever you do, it can sense it." Luke nodded. He adjusted small regulators, reconnecting energy lines, and the hum grew stronger. The engines did not roar, but the vibrations were intense, enough to rattle the walls of the hangar. It was alive, but in a controlled way. Well, he had to keep calm. The ship responded to his emotions. Hours turned into days. Luke and Claire worked methodically. They discovered storage bays with ancient weapons, some human-made, some alien in design. They found armor plating that shimmered faintly, cloaking technology, and systems that could generate shields strong enough to withstand attacks from multiple fleets. Luke realized that this ship had been part of a forgotten war, one so old that most star systems had no memory of it. One evening, the hangar doors opened slightly. Luke and Claire froze. They saw shadows moving outside. Alien mercenaries had returned, this time with more caution. They peered in, whispering, trying to see the ship without triggering its defenses. Luke smiled faintly. "They will learn," he said. "They will not get in." Sure enough, as one of the aliens stepped too close, the invisible defenses activated. The air seemed to thicken. Images appeared in the shadows, and strange sounds echoed through the corridor. The aliens panicked and retreated, running as if the walls themselves were alive. Luke and Claire watched silently. The ship protected itself, but it had not attacked. It only warned and repelled. "It doesn't need weapons to be terrifying," Claire whispered. "That's the point," Luke said. "It's intelligent enough to choose when to fight and when to wait." As the days passed, Luke uncovered more of the ship's secrets. He found logs detailing its missions, old battles, and protocols. It had been part of a fleet that defended human colonies against alien invaders centuries ago. Some of its records were encrypted in human codes, while others used alien logic. Luke slowly decrypted them, understanding the tactics, the technology, and the principles behind the ship. He realized that the ship was built not just to destroy, but to protect. It had rules embedded in its programming, rules that allowed it to judge who deserved its power. It did not attack indiscriminately. It could strike entire fleets, but it would only do so if commanded by someone it trusted, or if a direct threat was present. One night, as Luke and Claire worked on restoring the shield generators, the ship spoke. The voice was calm, deep, and resonant. Human understanding increasing. Systems restoration. Recognized. Readiness approaching. Luke felt a thrill. The ship was communicating more directly now. It was no longer just testing. It was cooperating. He responded, carefully. "I am learning. I want to understand everything. I want to restore you fully." "Intent accepted," the ship replied. "Security protocols enhanced. Outside interference detected. Threats will be neutralized if necessary." The mention of threats made Luke frown. He knew the aliens would not give up easily. News of the ship's awakening was spreading. Any major power that learned about it would try to claim it. The warship's existence could spark conflicts across multiple star systems. Claire looked concerned. "You realize what this means, don't you?" she asked. "People will come after you. They will not care if it's alive. They will want it for power." Luke nodded slowly. "I know. But if anyone else tries to control it, the ship will defend itself." It already showed that. The next day, they worked on the weapon systems. Luke discovered energy cannons that could fire in multiple directions at once, guided missiles that adjusted mid-flight with extreme precision, and defensive drones stored in small bays. Each system activated gradually, responding to his touch and commands. He felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. This ship was capable of destruction on a scale he could barely imagine. "We have to be careful," Claire said. "One mistake, and we could destroy the station." "I know," Luke said. "I won't rush anything. We'll restore it slowly, step by step." As they worked, Luke began to notice subtle signs of intelligence beyond what he had seen before. Panels would shift slightly to present tools, systems would realign themselves for easier access, and some sections opened automatically as if inviting inspection. It was learning his patterns, just as he was learning its systems. One afternoon, they accessed a hidden compartment near the core. Inside were holographic records of the ship's battles. Luke watched as images of massive fleets, destroyed stations, and glowing weapons appeared in the air. He felt awe and fear at the sheer scale of destruction the ship had once controlled. "This is incredible," Claire whispered. "Humanity built something like this. And it survived all this time. And now it's ours to restore," Luke said. "Carefully. We cannot let anyone misuse it." 2. 2. 2. As they studied the records, they noticed a warning embedded in the files. The ship's full power should never be activated without human command. Previous operators had faced mutiny from alien allies, and the ship had defended itself, sometimes destroying entire fleets in the process. It was a reminder that this was not a toy. It was a living weapon with intelligence and judgment. Over the next few days, Luke made slow progress restoring the engines, shields, and weapons. Each system responded to him in ways that suggested trust. The hums of power grew steady, the lights more vibrant, and small panels opened automatically, as if giving instructions. Claire documented everything carefully. Together, they moved methodically, restoring what had been dormant for centuries. The aliens outside continued to watch, but they dared not approach. Luke realized that the ship's presence alone was enough to protect the hangar. It was terrifying, but it was controlled. It did not attack unless necessary, yet any threat felt the weight of its intelligence immediately. One evening, the ship spoke again. Full restoration possible. Readiness nearing completion. Human judgment confirmed. Outside interference minimal. Further tests recommended. Luke felt a mixture of pride and fear. The ship was nearly restored, but he knew the final activation would be dangerous. It would reveal the ship's presence fully to the galaxy. Alien powers would react. Some might come peacefully, but others would come to take it by force. Claire looked at him. "Are you ready for that?" she asked. Luke nodded slowly. "I have to be. This ship survived for centuries, waiting for someone who could understand it. I am that person. We'll restore it fully, and we'll protect it." The next morning, Luke accessed the ship's core control systems. The hum grew louder. The floor vibrated, and lights glowed brighter than ever. He carefully activated the final sequences for the engines and defensive systems. The ship responded instantly. Energy flowed through the panels, and the air seemed to hum with power. Outside, the hangar doors opened automatically. The ship's presence extended beyond the walls, creating a field that repelled any intruder. Alien scavengers who approached cautiously stopped dead in their tracks, unable to move forward. Luke realized that the ship was testing them, assessing their intent, even from a distance. "It's alive," Claire whispered. "And it's judging everyone." Luke nodded. He felt the weight of responsibility pressing on him. This was no longer just a restoration project. It was a living warship, ancient and intelligent, capable of defending itself and human civilization if necessary. And now, it had chosen him as its guardian. He climbed into the cockpit, touching the final panels. The ship's voice echoed calmly, with authority and understanding. Restoration complete, readiness confirmed, human intent aligned, guardianship granted. Luke felt a surge of energy. The ship had fully awakened. It was alive, aware, and waiting for the next step. Outside, the shadows of the station seemed smaller, the alien observers powerless, and the hangar became a fortress no one could penetrate. He turned to Claire. "We did it. It trusts us. Now, we have to protect it, and prepare for what comes next." She nodded, her face serious. "The galaxy will know soon enough, and not everyone will welcome it." Luke stared at the warship, feeling awe and fear in equal measure. Centuries of history, power, and intelligence now rested in his hands. He had restored something humanity had almost forgotten, something terrifying and magnificent, and he knew that the real challenge had only just begun. Luke Carter stood in the cockpit, staring at the controls. The warship had awakened fully. The hum of power filled the hangar, vibrating through his bones. Lights glowed along the hull, pulsing with life. The ship was no longer dormant or waiting. It was alive, aware, and fully functional. He could feel its presence surrounding him, like a silent guardian, watching his every move. Claire stood behind him, notebook in hand, recording everything. She had never seen anything like this. The hangar, once quiet and abandoned, now felt like the heart of a living city. Energy flickered along the walls, and panels opened automatically as if guiding them. The ship was intelligent, powerful, and frightening. "It's magnificent," Claire whispered. "And terrifying." Luke nodded. "I know. It's not just a ship. It's a protector, a weapon, and a guardian all in one. And now it trusts us." Outside the hangar, the alien factions had gathered. Word of the awakening had spread across the station, and dozens of ships hovered nearby, their weapons ready. They did not approach too closely. They had learned the hard way that the hangar was protected. Invisible forces, energy barriers, and illusions had repelled all attempts at intrusion. The aliens whispered among themselves, fear evident in their gestures. Luke knew it was only a matter of time before they tried something bigger. The warship could defend itself, but he wanted to prepare carefully. He accessed the ship's sensors and defensive systems, activating shields that extended beyond the hangar. The energy flowed outward, creating a protective field that made any attack nearly impossible. The aliens watched in disbelief as their sensors failed to detect the ship fully. "They won't attack directly," Luke said to Claire. "Not yet. They are waiting. But the moment they do, the ship will respond." Claire nodded. "And we will be ready?" "We have to be," Luke replied. "It's not just about protecting the ship. It's about keeping humanity safe." Over the next few days, Luke and Claire worked tirelessly. They explored every compartment, restored every system, and tested every weapon. The ship responded smoothly, guiding them, correcting minor errors, and providing subtle instructions. It was as if it had been waiting for centuries for someone who could understand it, and now it had found them. One evening, Luke accessed the warship's historical logs. He wanted to understand its full capabilities and past missions. Holographic images filled the cockpit, massive fleets, destroyed enemy stations, and battles fought across star systems. He saw how humans had once commanded these ships, how they had fought wars against powerful alien invaders, and how their intelligence had made them nearly unbeatable. "We are restoring history," Luke said softly. "But some of this power, it's terrifying." Claire looked over his shoulder. "It's a reminder. Humans built things like this once, and now, it's ours to guide." As they studied the records, alarms suddenly went off on the sensors. A large alien fleet was approaching. They were moving cautiously, but their intent was clear. They wanted to take the ship. Luke's heart pounded. This was the first serious test. He looked at Claire. "And, ready?" he asked. She nodded. "Let's show them what they are up against." Luke activated the ship's full defensive systems. Energy shields flared to life, extending far beyond the hangar. Drones deployed automatically, moving in precise patterns to create barriers. Invisible fields, distorted sensors, and made the hangar appear smaller and less significant than it actually was. The alien fleet hesitated. Their weapons could not reach the ship, and their drones failed to penetrate the defenses. The warship's intelligence spoke calmly, almost proudly. "Threats detected. Defense protocols active." Human guardianship confirmed. Luke felt a surge of confidence. He knew the ship could destroy the alien fleet easily, but the voice in the hangar reminded him that restraint was also power. The ship did not strike. It only protected, demonstrating its terrifying capabilities without killing. The aliens realized this immediately. Their fear was enough. They began to retreat slowly, unable to challenge the warship's presence. "It's terrifying without firing a shot," Claire said, "and it didn't need to." Luke smiled faintly. "That's the point. It's not just weapons. It's intelligence, judgment, and control." After the fleet retreated, Luke and Claire spent hours analyzing the ship's full systems. They activated cloaking capabilities, energy projection systems, and navigational enhancements. Each system came online smoothly, responding to human touch and intention. The ship's hum was steady now, no longer testing them, no longer quiet. It was awake fully and ready for anything. Luke climbed to the observation deck and looked at the stars beyond the hangar. The galaxy was vast, full of unknown threats and unknown opportunities. He realized that the ship was a symbol of humanity's past strength and its potential future power. "The galaxy doesn't know what's coming," he said softly. "But we do." Claire placed a hand on his shoulder. "And we'll protect it. No one else will control this ship. Not without its trust." "And?" Luke nodded. He felt the weight of responsibility pressing on him. The warship had survived centuries, waiting for someone capable, and now it was his duty to guide it. He could not fail. Over the next week, they tested long-range systems and explored the ship's capabilities beyond the hangar. Energy projections reached far into space, sensors detected distant fleets, and cloaking allowed them to move without being noticed. The ship responded to commands quickly, adjusting systems to maximize efficiency and safety. It was perfect, terrifying, and alive. One night, while monitoring the surrounding space, Luke noticed movement on distant sensors. Alien reconnaissance ships had returned, trying to learn more about the warship. Luke activated the defensive systems, projecting energy patterns that made the alien sensors read false images. The aliens believed the ship was much smaller and weaker than it actually was. "It's like a ghost," Claire whispered. "They don't even know what they're up against." Luke nodded. "And if they do, it won't matter. The ship will protect us." He realized that humanity had built weapons not just for war, but for survival. This ship had survived centuries, hidden and protected, waiting for humans who could understand it. Now it was awake, fully functional and aware, and Luke knew that the galaxy would never forget the day this warship returned. The following days were quiet. Alien observers kept their distance, too cautious to approach. Luke and Claire continued restoring minor systems, learning every detail, and preparing for the future. The ship guided them subtly, opening compartments, highlighting controls, and showing its intelligence in small ways. It had trust now, but it remained vigilant. One morning, Luke activated the ship's main engines for a test. The hangar shook slightly as energy flowed through the coils. The hum was louder than ever, vibrating through the entire station. Lights flickered on nearby decks, and sensors on distant ships registered the awakening. It was a signal to the galaxy. The warship had returned. "It's alive," Claire said, awe in her voice. "And the galaxy is going to notice soon." Luke nodded. "And when they do, they will remember humanity's power. Not just the weapons, but the judgment, the intelligence, and the restraint." He climbed into the cockpit fully, feeling the ship's presence surrounding him. It was alive, aware, and fully functional. He could feel its energy pulsing like a heartbeat. He was no longer a scavenger. He was the guardian of a living warship, a relic of humanity's past, and a force the galaxy could not ignore. Outside, the station remained quiet. Alien powers dared not approach, sensing the weight of what had awakened. The hangar doors opened fully, and Luke guided the ship slowly out into space. The warship moved gracefully, engines humming, shields active, sensors scanning. The galaxy waited. But for the first time in centuries, it did not move against them. It watched, unsure, wary, and fearful. "We are ready," Luke said softly. "Let the galaxy see what humanity built." Claire smiled, a mix of pride and fear. The warship accelerated, leaving the station behind. The stars stretched ahead like a sea of possibilities. Luke felt the hum of the engines, the intelligence of the ship, and the weight of history. They had awakened something forgotten, something powerful, something terrifying. And now, it was theirs to guide. As they moved further into space, Luke realized that this was only the beginning. The galaxy would react. Allies and enemies would appear. But with the warship awake, humanity had regained a force it had almost forgotten. But it was not just a ship. It was a reminder of human skill, intelligence, and courage. And Luke Carter, once a simple scavenger, was now the captain of a living legend. The galaxy would remember the day. An 11-credit hangar revealed the most terrifying and magnificent human warship ever built. The stars ahead were vast, full of unknown dangers and unknown opportunities. But Luke knew one thing clearly. Humanity had returned to the galaxy with a voice that could not be ignored, and the warship hummed in agreement, alive, aware, and ready.